Hi yogis, it's Maud here again and welcome to Yin Yoga for the hip flexors. If you don't quite know what the hip flexors are, it is the muscles that flex the hip. These guys right here. They're powerful, powerful muscles. And with our modern day sedentary lifestyles, these hip flexor muscles that we have tend to be weakened or short because our bodies are just oriented in one shape behind the computer, sitting for a long time, perhaps behind the wheel, in the car, stuck in traffic. It's just our modern day reality. And so it's good to bring some attention into this spot, into this area that tends to feel tight and weak. But we're not just gonna open. We are also going to strengthen it. We are going to do some shearing of it because these hip flexor muscles really do hold a lot of tension. And even in Chinese medicine, the hip flexor area basically sort of becomes the resident of our mental and emotional tension and stress. So we hold it in here, especially women. And so it's just good to bring some attention into that area, open it, strengthen it as well, and just not orient it in one way or one state. And so, like any other yin class, grab all the props that you have. If you do not have a bolster like mine, which is pretty thick and long, grab your biggest pillow and then wrap a blanket around it. Make a burrito out of that blanket or out of that pillow so it becomes thick and it becomes really sort of a replacement for a thick bolster. 2 blocks and my blanket, whatever you have, grab all the pillows in the world and we will get started here. We will actually get in a squat position, seated on top of the bolster or your pillow, your burrito pillow. So I want you guys to take the time to sit your bums down on top of your pillow or your bolster. Just spread the legs out wide like you would a natural squat, but we're not gonna super activate the squat. This squat will be a little bit more of a resting squat, but open the knees and the inside of the ankles, the inside of the arches rather of the foot will be peeled out a little bit, but not a whole lot. And just drape the arms and the shins or perhaps towards the mat and keeping your spine long, but just bow your head down. Recognizing the shape here of the hip flexor, that hip is flexed right now in this squat position. Once you feel a little bit more comfortable here physically with your bums on top of your bolster and your pillow, let's take some deep breaths here. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh it out through the mouth. Ha. Inhale in. Exhale, sigh. Ha. One more time, just like that. Inhale in. And then exhale, sigh it out. Ha. After you take your last sigh, you can bow your head towards your hands or the mat, but just keeping the spine long. Even if it's not perfectly vertical, keeping the breath soft, just dangling the arms without rounding the shoulders too much. So keep a little bit of integration as well. Inhale. Exhale. Reduce the urge to just get into the next pose. Anytime you feel like you're dumping your lower spine down, you know how that does not feel good. Elongate the spine, a little bit of waking up of the belly. And just stay here for about a few more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Beautiful. Blink the eyes open. This is my left knee, so direct your upper body towards the left side so that behind your left knee is going to be the short edge of the bolster. And you're going to swing your right leg around, but you're going to keep that ankle kind of behind the knee. So it's bent in this 90-ish degree orientation. Again, this is the short end of the bolster, back of the knee is there. It's not quite a pigeon pose, but it's this sort of half pigeon. You can stay upright right here, or you can grab one of your blocks. And just place your hands right there. Inhale. And then exhale. If you firm up the right glute, you'll notice it sort of opens up the right hip a little bit. We're not going to hold our breath as we firm up the glute. It's going to be a little bit engaged, but we're not going to overdo that. If you find that taking a nice conscious bow in this shape is what you need or what feels better for you, you can walk your block out. You can even put it on its lower side and lean the body a little bit towards the block, hands on top of the block. And just let the head hang, making sure that the jaw is not tense, the neck does not feel tense. And if you haven't done a lot of Yin Yoga classes, or if this is your first time, in Yin, we really try to access the cooler and the calmer energy of the body. So we stay in poses a little bit longer than usual, at least 12 breaths. As we get in these poses for a long time, temper your over-eagerness to just get to the next thing, or the next pose. Softness in the face. Inhale. Exhale. Take one last breath. And then slowly release from this. Perhaps you can drag the block with you. And then kind of release the left leg from where it is. Get into a high kneeling position, but not for long, because we're just going to place the block on its second phase. So this is the first, this is the second, the third is the highest. Place it towards the edge of the bolster, not completely here, but right here. There's enough space in there. And then place your left heel on the edge of the bolster, and you know that the block is going to come underneath the hamstring. So we're going to get in this dragon. Right leg is long to the back. Again, make sure that you recruit the right glute to help open up the right hip. And in this dragon, we're not going to lift our torso up. You can cross your arms on top of the left thigh and just hang. You can let your head hang as well. So with Yin, we know there's a lot of sort of a sense of surrender that's needed, because we need to yield, surrender towards the earth. And we almost want gravity to do its job, but we don't want to just stop and plop. We still want to be intentional in it, and so we want to keep our breath going. We want to keep it soft. But there's stuff that's unraveling in the tissues right in front of that right hip, and we just don't want to yank the hip to get there. We want to make it an eventual, gradual event. Inhale. Exhale. being okay with being a little bit more quiet as well. Take your last breath right here. Inhale. And as you exhale, you can place your hands on top of your block just so it doesn't wobble as you release from this pose. Place the block on its highest side on top of the bolster if you want. And then you can almost heel toe your left heel on the wide edge of the bolster so that you're coming up in this square lunge. We're going to do what PTs would call officially as the hip flexor stretch. And so we're going to place your left hand on the block. Your entire palm is on the top of that block. Inhale the right arm up. And as you exhale, send that right hip to the right. Lift the front body up and then send the left arm to the left. Some physical therapists like it when you place your right ankle, your right heel across the body and sort of slant it towards the left side. I find that it makes a little bit of difference. Maybe for you it's a big difference. So try it with the ankle behind the knee or across towards the left. Totally up to you what feels good. And then drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Inhale. And then exhale. If you find that your right arm is getting tired, you can just drape that right arm on top of your right head, your right temple on the right side of your head. Big inhale. How is that right glute, guys? Exhale. And then slowly release from this. Beautiful. Set the block aside, but keep the bolster where it is. We're going to get into a swan pose, or otherwise known as pigeon. So you can heel toe your left foot. Again, back of the left knee is going to be on the short edge of the bolster. Make sure that the left shin is sort of parallel towards the body, it is perpendicular towards the body. You can plant your hands down and then lengthen your right leg to the back and lean forward a little bit. This is perfectly fine. If you do want to grab your blocks and place your hands on top of the blocks, that's fine too. Some of you may even want to be down onto your elbows. And just get to your first pit stop. So we don't want to get to the max of a certain stretch or a certain pose in yin. We want to eventually get to a point where when the body is no longer giving you feedback, that is considered the max, and you can pull out of it, and then you can come back into the pose. Soften the face any amount. You'll notice a shift in your joints, in your connective tissues with every exhale that you take. So with yin, we're not necessarily contracting a lot of the muscles and working the muscles, quote unquote. There is some strengthening, but it's nothing compared to, say, a regular yoga class where you're doing warrior, perhaps. This is getting past the muscles almost and getting into your connective tissues. And those connective tissues are the ligaments, the tendons, the joints, they are connective tissues because they do connect certain parts of the body towards each other. And they're considered sort of in-betweeners. Inhale. Exhale. In your last few breaths in this one, if you do find that you can sort of lower the elbows down towards the mat fully, then do it. Otherwise, do not force the body to get to a place that it's not ready for. Inhale. Exhale. I love this version of swan or pigeon because it just keeps the pelvis level. And you almost feel plenty supported that you can just hang. Take your last exhale. And after your last breath, peel your forehead or your hands away from your prop. Start to walk the hands back. And then turn the body back into where we started in that squat pose. So the bums are going to be on top of the bolster or your pillow. Perhaps the hips can be a little bit wider this time. Perhaps you can cradle the ankles. Spine is still more in the upright position. Just dangle your head and your neck. Inhale. And then exhale. Beautiful. We're going to turn over to the other side. So knowing you're going to use a block, so just grab one block or one prop with you. And this could be a pillow or whatever it is that you have. Again, back of the right knee is going to be on the short edge of that the bolster. And then just bend your left leg behind you. Hip, knee, and ankle sort of in line. But if your orientation is different from mine, do not worry about it. I'd rather you get in a place where you're comfortable, you can sustain it, but at the same time, you're still feeling some sensation in there. So it's like half a pigeon, half a swan. You'll notice right away which side feels awkward. This is definitely mine. Take deep breath right here. Inhale. And exhale. Breathe through this space in front of the left hip. Breathe through this space behind it just to encourage some integration, some dialoguing happening in this area right here. And perhaps you grab the block. You can lean your body towards it if you want to have a little bit of forward lean to make this experience enjoyable, sustainable. Yin may be a slower practice, but it's not totally a chill out and sleep practice because there's still activity that's happening that we can't help but be aware of, and we almost want to use our breath to keep our minds and our breaths in tune with what's happening in the body. So we're not zoning out. Take your last breath here. Inhale. And then exhale. Beautiful. Slowly come upright. You can swing the right leg in, be in this kneeling position, just so we could put the block in its second position right here on top of the bolster, towards the edge, but not the edge. We're going to get into dragon with the block underneath our hamstrings. So to get there, make sure that the right heel is on the edge of that bolster. Send your left knee down in the back. If perhaps in your dragon the block is not touching your hamstrings, then just get in a regular dragon without dumping necessarily in your lower back. Keep this sort of 45-degree orientation on the torso just to keep this nice and relaxed, the lower back area. Cross your forearms on top of your lap and just sort of hang in there. But we know that the word hang doesn't really mean we're chilling, we're relaxing, because this right here is where the sensation is. And also in the back of it, the glute is working a little bit. Perhaps you feel this in the inside of the right thigh as well, in the right hip. Outside the right hip, rather. Inhale. Exhale. It is my job to keep reminding you to breathe, because this unraveling, this releasing that we're doing, they will all be futile and useless if we don't use the breath. If we hold the breath because we're uncomfortable and stuff is happening, it's getting unglued and being open and released, the breath is the number one tool to make peace with it, to go through that process. And so try not to tighten up your jaw or furrow your eyebrows. Soften the face, soften wherever you can soften. It's that spot where you just want to pull out of the pose. That's where the magic happens. That's where the yoga happens. So hang tight. We're almost there. Keep breathing. Last breath, no shortcuts. Inhale. And then exhale. Beautiful. You can put your hands on top of your block. Slowly come up. Heel toe your right foot towards the long edge of the block, so you can come up here into a square lunge. Place the block on top of the bolster on its highest, and already placing your right palm there, knowing we're going to get into the PT official hip flexor stretch. And so inhale the arms up, the left arm up. As you exhale, send the left hip to the left, lengthen the front body, and then really bring the left arm to the right. Again, some PTs like it with the left ankle crossed towards the right, kind of slanted in the 45-degree angle. We're also getting a psoas stretch right here, that deep hip flexor muscle, core muscle. Make sure that the left glute isn't asleep. Send little bits of reminder to that glute that since it's a hip extensor, it extends the hip, maybe wake it up and say, hey, can you pop out a little bit? And if the left arm is tired, you can just drape it on top of your head, the left side. This is definitely a place where It looks like you're chilling, but you're really not. Otherwise, you're going to topple over. So still very much self-aware, making conscious decisions with the breath, making conscious decisions with where your focus is at. One big breath here, inhale. And exhale. Beautiful, slowly release. We're going to get into swan in yin speak, but it's called pigeon pose for a lot of people. Place your block wherever you want it to be, knowing that you might need it. Again, heel toe your right foot outside or in front of the edge of the bolster. And then the back of the right knee is going to be by the edge of that bolster. Perhaps the calves are really touching the short end of the bolster. Lengthen the left leg behind you. And so just being propped up in this swan or this pigeon, I really love it because it sort of doesn't give you much choice to tilt your pelvis. It evens out your pelvis and keeps it level. And so place your hands down, perhaps spreading those fingers so that there's still a bit of integration and action there. And you're not totally dumping towards the earth. As you square the chest towards this side of the mat, just take an inhale. And as you exhale, make a conscious decision if you want to let your hands stay down, you want to place your elbows on top of a block. And perhaps that's your first pit stop. And be okay with being a little bit more lifted, upright, and elevated right now. Perhaps close the eyes. Keep your eyelids heavy and feel all the changes happening in the hip, perhaps the lower back, perhaps the shoulder, and the breath. Sometimes stuff comes up to you in these poses. Tension release isn't something that may come easy for a lot of people. It may take some dialoguing, conversation, some breathing, whatever form of therapy is helpful. And so tension that is being held in the body definitely can be caused by emotional or mental circumstances. So knowing that a yoga practice may look like a physical practice, but really deep within, it's a lot more stuff that's happening. And so a yin practice is just the perfect gateway for that. You really have to sit in a pose and be in a pose, so almost like you have no choice but to converse with yourself. Big inhale. If you feel like you can make it to the floor with your elbows down on the floor, please do so. Otherwise, do not force it. This is my tighter side, so I don't go in as low as the other side, and be completely fine with that. Honor your shape, honor your experience. And if stuff comes up, feel free to moan and groan and grunt. This is not meant to be comfortable. Take your last few breaths right here. Make it productive, make it helpful. Inhale. As you exhale, peel the forehead away from your hands or your prop. Come upright. And whatever you need to do to gracefully get into that squat position again, please do so. Perhaps the hands help the legs. Ay, ay, ay. One of my teachers said, at the end of every yin class, if you're not walking around like a 90-year-old, then you're missing the point. And that's because we're getting deep into those connective tissues. Legs wide, cradle the ankles if you want. We're not going to be here a long time. Lengthen the spine. And then perhaps just bow your head a little bit. Reset. Inhale. And as you exhale, slowly draw the legs together. You can cross at the ankles. Get in a kneeling position again as we transition into a dangle. So if you have a bolster, get the bolster upright on its short side and just step 1 foot at a time as you come into a standing position. Place the bolster sort of in front of the thighs. Just let it lean. Feet will be hip width apart or wider than hip width apart, whatever feels good. And just drape your upper body on top of the bolster. And you can even slide your arms down. Let your chest rest on the short edge of the bolster. If you're not quite sure how this looks like, I will show it on the side right here. Do not super activate the thighs. I know there is a temptation to lift the belly back and up. Please don't do it here. That's not the whole point of what we're doing. We just want to dangle. Like literally just let stuff hang. Releasing the lower back. Lower back and glute stuff can be directly related to whatever's happening in the hip flexor. Right here, just dangle, dangle, dangle. Inhale. Release it all out. Exhale. Be okay with the silence. Be okay with just listening and observing. Whenever you're ready, you can sort of catch the sides of the bolster and use that to sort of uncurl the spine. Coming into a standing position and just acknowledge the change in altitude and sort of gather yourself if there was any lightheadedness and whatnot that was happening. With the hands on the bolster as support, just get down 1 knee at a time as we get down onto our bellies. So if you can just keep the props aside, I'll just place my bolster right here. Come into a Sphinx pose. So plant your elbows right underneath the shoulders. And plant your hips and your knees down. And tuck the toes in the back. So a little bit active legs here. Also kind of wakes up the glutes that again extends the front of that hip. Hands are about shoulder width apart. Squeezing the shoulder blades towards each other to help open up the chest. Just relax the neck and look at any spot in front of you that doesn't force you to yank your head up or to lower your head down too much. Just sort of let the neck feel comfortable. Inhale here. As you exhale, turn the head towards your right shoulder and maybe look beyond the right shoulder. Find that nice neck stretch on that left side. Inhale, center. Exhale, look beyond your left shoulder. Inhale, center. Make a pillow out of your hands. Place your forehead on top of it. Relax the left foot, but keep the toes of the right foot tucked. Then lift the knees off of the mat because you're sort of waking up that right leg, even though the left leg is just hanging. Wake up the right glute, really firm up the right butt. And press your right hip down a little bit more. And release the right foot, let it relax. This time, toes on the left foot are going to be tucked. Lift the knees off of the mat. Push back the heel. Wake up the left butt. Nudge the left hip to lower down more and press down more towards the mat. Inhale. And then exhale. Slowly release the left foot. Slide the hands underneath the shoulders and gently push yourselves up into this nice hero pose. So knees can be about hip width apart and you can sit your hips towards your heels. Send the left hand towards the right thigh. Right hand can be on your lower back. Inhale, lengthen the spine. And as you exhale, open up your right elbow and your right shoulder. And find a twist towards the right side. Inhale. And as you exhale, release the twist. Right hand on your left thigh. Left hand guarding your lower back. As you take a next inhale, find this nice vertical energy in the spine. And then exhale, open up the left elbow and left shoulder to twist towards the left. Deep breath in. Then exhale, release it out. Untwist. Get into child's pose, please. So widen the knees, toes towards each other. You can place your elbows down first before you place your forehead down on something. If it's not the mat, maybe a pillow, a blanket, or any prop. And keeping the elbows down, the fingers relaxed. Send the hips back and down towards the heels, child's pose.
Again, not tuning out. Still very much aware of what's happening. After we've opened up that hip and rotated the hip out, notice how different that feels from this flexed position. It's not bad to flex the hip at all. What becomes a problem is if all we're doing is flexing the hip as we're sitting around the whole day. Inhale. And as you exhale, slide the hands underneath your shoulders. Again, uncurl the spine, lift your torso up. And just a short stretch, hands behind you. Lean back a little bit, squeeze your shoulder blades together, open the chest. Recognize and notice any changes you feel from the changes in the altitude as we just lifted our head up from being on the ground. And slowly release. Get onto your backs, please. And then, actually, let's place the bolster close to you so that you can just grab it whenever you need it. So make sure that the bolster is within your arm's reach. I'm going to place it right here. Get on your backs. Then we're going to do supported bridge with the bolster underneath our sacrum. So as you lay down right here, have the feet at the knees separated, at least hip width apart. And then grab your bolster or your pillow, your burrito. And then as you lift your hips up, slide it underneath your sacrum so that you can place your buns and your lower back on top of it. You can place your hands in the belly or on the side. You can open it up. But just hang right here in this supported bridge pose. As I mentioned, yin is a more cooling and calming energy. So notice if any swirls in your mind, it's sort of distracting you away from that sort of energy. It's distracting you away from this cooling and calming practice. And let the breath bring you back to your mat. Perhaps if you like, leave the left foot where it is, just lengthen the right leg out, digging the right heel down. Again, opening up that right hip, recruiting the right glute in the back. And the right foot comes back. Sliding and gliding the left heel down as you lengthen the left leg. I notice a huge difference in my hip flexors, and I hope you guys too. And then slide it back to center. Lift the glutes up away from the bolster, and you can just slide the bolster out of the way before you lower your butt down. Open your arms if you want. Inhale, send the knees towards the chest. And then exhale, just bring the knees towards that right side. Perhaps your left shoulder blade is down towards the mat. You can place something between the thighs to level out the pelvis. On your next inhale, slowly release from this twist. And just swing the knees towards the left side, shifting your hips towards the right. Perhaps right shoulder blade is down and glued towards your mat. Perhaps you turn your head and your neck towards the right arm. And then slowly release, come back to center. Get into your Shavasana shape. If your Shavasana today is a traditional Shavasana with the feet at least mat width apart and the hands at either side of the hips, you can do that. You can take any shape you want if you're just in your own homes. And so since this is a yin practice, you guys can stay in your Shavasana for as long as you want. It was an honor for me to guide you through this practice. I hope your hip flexors feel yummy, feel delicious, and feel taken care of. From my heart to yours, the light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much. Until next time, see you. Goodbye and take care. Enjoy your Shavasana.